I grew up in the middle of rural southern Indiana, an area almost exclusively populated by white people. In a high school of 1,000 kids, we had 1 or 2 East Asian kids, 1 black guy, and a Bangladeshi. Our exchange students were mostly German, and I had pretty much zero interactions with African Americans growing up. I was not diagnosed with Asperger's until I was 22, so I had problems dealing socially with people I grew up with, and it was a constant uphill battle. I tried so hard to figure out the code of the white culture I was raised in. Boot camp was a serious culture shock, as nearly 40% of my unit was African American. Boot camp is a unique time of honesty and vulnerability you won't find in most areas of reality, where social nuances are tossed aside. The group bonded from hardship and stress in ways only extreme circumstances can do. I kept in contact with none of the people I was in boot camp with, mostly because email was a thing for mostly nerds and colleges, and Facebook hadn't even written its first line of code yet. Boot camp was over in 9 weeks, and we were all shipped out to our various places. My high academic performance sent me to Naval Nuclear Training Command, a place with probably 5% African Americans, if that at the time. My Asperger's and depression and stress from the school kept me away from people in general. On my ship, I was around mostly white people in my department. When I got my own place to live, I isolated myself from people in general. College was the same way until I started pushing myself socially in ways I never had in order to date. And because you tend to be attracted to people who look like people you were raised with, and I found the communication styles of many African Americans to my socially inflexible brain to be quite jarring, and I ended up dating pretty much exclusively white women. I found my current partner, who is white, and became involved with atheist, science, and skeptic groups, which were pretty much old white males clubs. I am now 37 years old at a place with probably 10% African American employment. I find communicating with them is still rather awkward, not because of bias as far as I can tell, but because it makes me feel exactly like I did when I hadn't figured out how to communicate with the average white person. I get along almost seamlessly with almost all the immigrants of every background, as they're like me, outsiders trying to get better at interacting with the American majority, a skill that took me most of my life to get at least intermediately good at. If I moved to any other country, they would treat me as any other American foreigner. Dealing with African American communication, a style both created as a protest and also evolved from hyper-segregation forced on them by whites, throws me back to the communication awkwardness of high school, which also takes me back to something of a vulnerable high school mindset, a time I seriously hated. To complicate things, there are many variations in African American culture, just like there are many variations in white culture. I feel bad how I communicate with my black coworkers at times. I can tell they're trying to be friendly, but I don't know how to reciprocate enthusiastically and seamlessly. Our exchanges tend to be friendly, but also rather awkward and brief. Learning how to communicate smoothly with them is probably my final major challenge of Asperger's after 37 years of struggling with it. It's a goal to challenge myself with in the next few years. Mind you, it's possible that neurotypical people who don't spend a lot of time around other ethnicities may actually be even more awkward around them than I am. When we moved from the Midwest to DC area, I think my girlfriend had more of a culture shock than I did. I'm used to never quite getting a grasp on the social nuance. She's not. So when the passive-aggressive reactions occurred or people reacted in unexpected ways such as they got offended much more easily by things we said in our Midwest directness, she was thrown off much worse than I was by the social blindness. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why it's difficult to have a real discussion on race. People can't get over the vulnerability they feel when dealing with another culture and ethnicity. Some will try to do so with the best of intentions, but be oblivious to their own privileged viewpoints, that they're being offensive and trying to deal with a white man's burden. Many white people react negatively when they make an effort to befriend black people with an idealistic view of charity, and they feel the blacks are being ungrateful when they aren't that interested in being friends. The media's portrayal of white and black people has an impact as well. YouTube can create a celebrity effect on very ordinary people, and if you only know black or white stereotypes from TV, that can seriously affect how you try and interact with them, as their appearance can cause you to assume you are talking to someone else you saw on TV, and project inferences on them instead of the person you're actually talking to. I knew a lady who also happened to be white, who played a character who was a completely toxic bitch. The type of person I would have avoided at all costs in real life, but was hilarious to watch as an act. However, the act was so convincing that it was very, very difficult to get to know the real her when talking to her, because I only knew her as her character, and I constantly had to remind myself that that was not the person I was talking to. though my brain refused to believe it, making what could have been a good friendship with a brilliant person rather awkward. The same effect plagues people in stereotyping, when people only have characters as their reference points for a certain group of people, and not a good mix of actual people in that group. Yet another reason why I need to flood my life with more people of other ethnicities at some point, though that will require being overwhelmed a lot, like I was back in my younger years, and involve feeling more socially uncomfortable and lost like I did back in my teens, until I can get the swing of things and not be awkward. Mind you, I'm not a terribly social person by choice anyway, so that's going to be a while, but at least I'm aware of the personal deficiency, and something to shoot for as opposed to someone who thinks they're fine the way they are, and are lying to themselves. I would have to say that the answer to the question this video asks is probably yes, though it may not just be the Asperger's, other than being antisocial, but more human nature in general. Hey there, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw from my channel, please subscribe and donate to my Patreon. If you have evidence to counter what I say, please provide it. If you would like to see what I was doing with this channel 6 years ago, please click the links on the screen. Thank you so much.